delicious LA opaque tap water. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday. It is February 1st, 2012, and this is Day 9 Daily number 412, where we learn to be a better gamer, and we remember that we didn't pay rent today. Sorry, Asher. In very exciting news, I have successfully eaten all the fruit popsicles in the refrigerator, leaving a fruity, purple tongue. Sorry, Asher. But I promoted Asher's amazing iPhone game Puzzle Juice, which was actually featured on the front page of Kotaku today. Yeah! Go, Asher. So I figure he has enough money to buy himself a new pack of popsicles. There we go. In today's Zerg vs. Protoss, actually, let me just say, in today's daily, we're going to be looking at the Zerg vs. Protoss matchup. It's a matchup that I would almost be ashamed to say that I intentionally avoided for a good period of time because there was not that much new and interesting going on. It revolved largely around taking 3 bases against an early expanding player and getting up a whole bunch of roaches to deal with all the timing attacks, to put pressure back on. And once you learn that, you are in pretty damn good shape to go careening towards Broodlords in the endgame. And what happens if he goes 1 base versus my 2 base? You still work on getting a pretty fast Roach speed timing and proceed accordingly. So that was fine. I mean, there's a lot of interesting subtlety there, but no interesting big new ideas going on. So, yeah, I liked it. I liked the matching shirt and the face. So, the thing that's been developing in Zerg vs. Protoss recently is the emergence of the mutalisk Zergling style. I'm not going to engage against you directly ever. I'm going to be harassing to kill off probes. I'm going to be counterattacking to try to pull your army back. I'm going to be forcing a base race almost every opportunity I can get because my mutalisks are faster, and if you ever make any mistake catching any of your units in the wrong position, I will punish you, and I will kill you off. So cool, we have this old school style and we have this new school style. The Roach defensive style, the mutalisk mad aggression style. The one thing that did, I guess irk me a little bit about these mutalisking players is that there seemed to be no beauty, no finesse to reach the wonderful Wubulus mutalisk stage. There seemed to be a lot of players who would kind of throw down spine crawlers, do whatever they could, and then once they got mutalisk, yeah, that's when the party really started. And there was almost 8 to 10 minutes of meandering in the opening for the Zerg. Complete clueless, arbitrary defense until the mutalisk popped up. So today we're going to look at Liquid Zenio, how he opens in this matchup in an attempt to transition to a mass mutalisking style. But what is so amazing about this opening that Zenio does is it has an incredible amount of flexibility. It can lead you to a lot of aggression, and it gets you to a place where you have all the structures you would ordinarily have, but the order he gets them in is so brilliant. I can't wait. I'm so pumped. It's going to be 2 games. Liquid Zenio versus Naniwa from the recent IEM Kiev. Wanted to, of course, note that the After Hours Gaming League, that's right, this thing, you guys, the After Hours Gaming League cast will be directly after this daily. It's going to be Palantir versus Epic. They're both undefeated. Whoever wins this is almost guaranteed to go to the playoffs. Is there any more announcements that we care about? Not until the end of the daily, so let's go into it. Let us divine upon the wonderful Wubulus matchup that is Our Lady of the Zerg vs. Protoss matchup. We're going to begin on Shakura's Plateau. This is game 2 between these 2 wonderful Wubulus players. And what we're going to see out of Zenio is some of the expected stuff. What I want to do is, in the descriptions of this, I want to meld what is typical and ordinary in Zerg vs. Protoss. Things like, oh, damn it, I did have the sound on. Things like when he expands, how he's scouting around, what his expectations are. And I want to contrast that normal stuff with a lot of the weird, new, crazy things that Zenio is going to be doing. And I think the most important thing that I'll even stop and show my face for, conditions. There are so many conditional elements to what Zenio does that it's important we talk about all of them. It's very easy to say something like, here's a fast drop play that gets there fast because getting there fast is good. And but we're looking at 2 specific games from Zenio today where we see him kind of go careening down one path and go careening down the other. So make sure that when you're trying to steal this build, you don't just mimic it blindly like a silly nibnard. We want to be making sure we're aware of when all our deviations could happen, even though they may not happen. And by the way, Shublar, give me an A-OK in Skype if the stream's still looking good. We're doing some tests on stream settings and stream stability, just so you know. So Liquid Zenio, wow, opening up with an early spawning pool. If you're going hatch first, stop it. You are running the risk of getting a 100% win or loss rate versus someone who's a reasonably good cannon rusher. Now, Naniwa is pretty famed for being one of the few players who does stick to this 16 Nexus, 16 Forge style, getting himself up a really fast Nexus with reasonably fast defense and everything else. We see the block going on at the front, and immediately Zenio is doing something that is atypical of your usual Zerg. By the way, atypical means not typical. Your ordinary Zerg would wait for these Zerglings to pop on out, and he would then kill off this probe. Maybe there's a pylon there and he'd kill off that pylon, but Zenio's doing a very ancient technique of building an extractor while all this is going on. This will allow him to tech, of course, but we ordinarily expect a Zerg to take this early third base. And you might be saying to yourself, well, this doesn't seem really that extraordinary. This is gonna be a huge damn deal really, really, really soon. Don't delay this gas that much. Getting it this early is fantastissimo. I'll give you the reason right now. It's the title of the broadcast. It's a roach-free way to play. We're trying to avoid those roaches at all costs. Cool. Roaches end up being very expensive in the early and mid game, largely due to the cost of those overlords. They require so much supply that we have to build a stupid amount of overlords. Now, Zenio would, I think, anticipate an early expand. 99 times out of 100, you're against an early expand, or nothing too extraordinary there. So 99 times out of 100, a Zerg player expects to take himself a fast third base. Naniwa, amazingly, even got into the main base and saw this gas going down. So Naniwa now, or actually, so Naniwa is aware of everything that Zenio is doing. Aware of this gas, didn't see the Zergling speed get started, which we are going to see momentarily. But I want to point out something really important that's going to happen right now, which is, again, this conditional thinking. Almost always, in this circumstance, the Protoss player is going to feel a big amount of discomfort. Because he sees that gas, which means a Baneling bust could be coming. Ugh, maybe I don't want to be so aggressive early on. And almost all Protoss builds are aggressive right now. Well, maybe he's going for a Spire soon. Maybe he's going for that fast layer. He could just be getting Zergling speed, and I could just be hallucinating, and it's not really a big deal. It opens up a huge range of possibilities. Contrast this with the normal experience for Protoss. He goes into the main, he sees no gas yet. He sees a third hatch at a third expansion, and he goes, oh, I'm up against a big macroing, crazy droning player like a Liquid Ret or something. I guess it's time for me to go nuts with the aggression with my Zealot Stalker harass at the start, maybe 2 Zealot harass, maybe going straight for Void Rays. Seeing no gas at all immediately makes the Protoss go gung-ho, and they begin attacking as much as possible. Here, not the case at all. Your Protoss player like Naniwa, who is a brilliant player, I think of all the Protoss players I could come up with, Naniwa has depth that is just bar none in terms of like understanding of all the possible deviations. He is well aware of what all the possibilities are, which is why he's sending this one probe scout out. It's obviously good that Zenio shuts all this down, and obviously at this point Naniwa will hit this and go, oh, it's really not going to be that fast of a layer. It looks like indeed it is just a swift Zergling speed. But, of course, if you kill this probe out, unless you're up against a Naniwa who is meticulous about his probe scout timing and his probe scout aggression, you gain the benefit of possibly having your opponent over-defend and flip out and have all sorts of panicked attacks about it. Now, let me just note the huge difference between I'm going to surprise him versus I could surprise him and I don't need to. When you take the gas, the strength of the build doesn't rely on him freaking out about a Spire. It doesn't rely on him freaking out about some sort of crazy attack. In fact, this build just relies on getting the fast Zergling speed. I don't care if you see it, I don't care if you don't see it at all. This is the real strength of the opening. If your opponent scouts you, don't panic. It's actually normal. You're actually comfortable even giving him vision at this point. But you gain that benefit that if for some reason Naniwa does start panicking, you're just gobbling up extra advantages from him because he'll build an extra cannon for defense. He'll be a little nervous. So I want to come back to Camp Naniwa and point out the style that he's doing. To illustrate it, I'm actually going to back up to 5 minutes and 30 seconds and just hang out here over the cybernetics core, and then I'm going to go to ×8. This is the modern PvZ style. There's been 1, 2, Corona Boost, there's a third, and then there's going to be a fourth. Maximum Corona Boost. I actually think he landed 5, but he landed 2 of them so close to each other, you just didn't see it. And of course, excuse me, this is going to help him get Warp Gate done early. Ordinarily, it finishes before the 8-minute mark. That's the trigger that I want you to sort of have in your head. But I'm going to come back to right here, and we're going to start talking about some of these possibilities. The big thing that all Zerg players are going to be worried about when they're taking this fast third is the modern early game aggression, which comes in a couple of flavors. Early air or early gateways. I'm just going to leave it to those two for now. Liquid Zenio goes ahead and gets just 25 minerals spent on those creep tumors. The rest of his energy is spent on these queens, and as he gains money, he plants down the third. In just a moment, we're going to see Liquid Zenio plant down units back into his geysers. I'm rewinding back through the same period multiple times, just so we can see. An evolution chamber does pop down. An evolution chamber to help him deal with air. Notice that we're not dealing with a mass queen air defense. We're still going with just basic amounts of queens, some spine crawlers here and here, and we're going to be relying on spore crawlers. I've told you that we're probably going to be going for a mutalisking style. It's very easy to be tempted to hurl units back into the gas way too frickin' early. Way too frickin' early. But notice that Zenio waits until around a little after the 60 food mark to do that. That is a very long time. You might ask, well, what happens if he doesn't go for the gateway? What happens if he goes air? I would tell you, wait for part 2. Because in the second game, that's exactly what happens. So cool, let's tunnel vision it up for a moment. As we come back here, I want to talk about the traditional Protoss attack, which is going to be the traditional modern attack. Actually, I probably shouldn't use the word traditional and the word modern in the same sentence. That doesn't make very much sense. The modern Protoss aggression involves this fast +1, this really fast warp gate. I don't know if you can hear that extremely loud helicopter outside, but that's generally what wakes me up at night. No, not a storm. I live in South Central Los Angeles. It's a helicopter or an ice cream truck. It's always one of those two. Back into the game. The modern aggression allows what? A warp gate research to be done at 8 minutes. And of course the timing to add on the other 3 gateways is literally now, right before halfway. Right when you're at 70 seconds completed. And what happens is you advance with 2 zealots, and these 2 zealots enable this back probe to throw down a pylon like here, or, you know, hell, just one right smack dab in the middle, and then you can do your warp-ins here and start really putting pressure on here. Hell, look at this. Our warp gate research is going to be done in a minute, less than a minute actually, and we are not even finished with this hatchery. That ends up being a really scary prospect for a Zerg player, which is why this is so good. How do Zergs normally defend against this? Ordinarily, it's roaches, but this is what makes this Zergling speed play so brilliant. As I back up, notice that Zergling speed finishes just right now, just as these zealots want to get started moving out. So suddenly Zenio just surrounds it and crushes this, and most importantly maintains control of these watchtowers, so that way he can pick off any probe that would be trying to plant down a forward pylon. Immediately, these warp gates haven't even finished. Hell, these gateways haven't even finished, and we've already completely negated the modern pressure that happens by ground. Now that's some creativity, isn't it? Yes! Sean said, pounding things arbitrarily. We are shutting down the two possibilities of aggression, one directly and one indirectly. One of them is air. How do we directly deal with that? We get that Evo chamber early to build spore crawlers, and we get queens. Indirectly, we deal with the warp gate pressure simply by having speed zerglings so fast that we kill off those forward probes. Brilliant. Absolutely love it. That's step one, the big step one that I really love so much about what Zenio did in these games. So here we see Naniwa continuing to try to get his warp gate up. A little bit of panic ensued as he threw down some photon cannons. We're going to abandon Camp Naniwa for a brief period. Here's that 60 food mark that we were looking at before we rewound. Or rewinded, depending on what your appreciation of grammar is. And we suddenly see a fourth hatchery go down from Zenio. I think this is one of the cleverest things that Zenio does in this entire game. He has all the preparations necessary for some sort of crazy attack. You know, here's the spine crawlers going down a little bit early, just in case. We have some speed zerglings up. You know, we have 14 out on the field. And then as we begin teching up to layer, again, we want to go Ling Muta. I've said this before. We're dying to go Ling Muta. But we, you know, delayed a little bit getting our hatch up, or delayed a little bit getting our layer up. So we popped down an extra hatch. If there was a crazy big attack coming, we wouldn't have the money to build this hatch. We'd maybe throw down some extra spines. We'd build some extra zerglings instead of drones. Still note that we're only now taking more geysers. Only just now. And we're keeping an absolute hawk eye. Oops. Keeping an absolute hawk eye on the front of Naniwa's base. Keeping these zerglings really, really well planted. And of course the spore crawler. I always think it's important to put the spore crawlers a little bit forward, because what the spore crawler is actually defending is the queen. You want to have a little bit of space for the queen to maneuver around the spore crawler. I think that's pretty important. You know, forward spore crawler. Not a lot of spore crawlers, just one in each location. Not a ton. Hey, look, there's our zergling speed going, or our zergling +1 attack going down. We want to help bolster that. See how we're extending the purpose of this evolution chamber? We don't just get an Evo chamber for +1, we get it for +1, and because we have found a need for these spore crawlers. Actually, I think I misstated that a little bit. So, let me do one way to extend the purpose of an evolution chamber. Shit, he has air units coming. Ah! I'm going to build the evolution chamber to get those spore crawlers. Cool. How do I extend the purpose? Getting an upgrade out of it. Really clean and easy. But here's the second and really, really, really subtle thing that Zenio's doing. Zenio is saying, you know, I need to defend air. I have a whole bunch of options before me. Queens, fast hydralisk. I maybe could get my spire up and just try to delay till that. I have this variety here. What do I need anyways? Zerglings I need anyways. Getting those upgrades I need anyways. So, since I'm getting the evolution chamber anyway, I'm going to structure my entire opening game around using this as defense. That is super subtle. It's very easy to say, okay, I'm going to build an evolution chamber and I'm going to get these spore crawlers up for defense. Cool. But then you rush for a layer as well and get those hydralisks. And then you're effectively saying that the spore colony use from this evolution chamber was zilch. You didn't use it as well as you could have. Now here is the level 2 brilliance that Zenio does. At this point in time, Zenio doesn't know anything. Have you ever heard a player complain that they, you know, ooh, I can't get into his base, I can't see what's going on, he could be doing any number of things? Well, we want to be going Ling Muta, and here is the real brilliance. This is what just aroused me more than anything. Hydralisks, so brilliant. I realize now that I'm getting so pumped about the game, I've forgotten to take a break. So we're already a little bit over for part 1, but no big deal. When we come back in part number 2, we're going to see how these Hydralisks end up being a brilliant stepping stone into this Ling Muta play that we want to do so bad. I'll see you in a sec.